Hey everyone, so you want to know what's up with helium, but maybe you don't want to read a whole long report. That's what we're here for. We're taking this Messari report. It's on helium's performance in Q3 2024. It was commissioned by the Helium Foundation, and we're going to break it all down for you. We're going to pull out the really important stuff.
The juicy bits?
Exactly. It's all about those aha moments where you think, wait, helium's doing what now?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so first, helium saw huge EE growth this past quarter, like a 10,202% jump in data offloaded from U.S. mobile carriers. That's 88,000 gigabytes.
Wow.
I know, right? Can you even put that into perspective for us? Like, what does that actually mean?
Sure. So basically, helium is like a backup network for these carriers. When a carrier's user is somewhere with good helium coverage, their device can just switch over to using a helium hotspot. It's like a people-powered network.
And the carriers are paying for it.
Right.
So it's good for everyone.
Yeah.
Carriers can expand their coverage without having to build all these expensive new towers, and helium gets paid for providing this service. It almost sounds too good to be true.
Well, there are definitely challenges, but the potential is huge. That 10,202% jump, it shows that the major players are paying attention. They're outsourcing some of their coverage to a decentralized network.
Oh, yeah. That is a pretty big deal. It feels like things are changing in the telecom world. And speaking of shaking things up, Helium Mobile, they now have over 116,000 subscribers, all thanks to that crazy $20 per month plan. Unlimited talk and text.
It's a steal.
I know.
And what's really interesting, it's not just crypto people using it anymore. It's just regular people looking for cheaper options.
I mean, yeah. Who wouldn't want to save some money? Okay, so let's talk about the network itself. We saw good growth in hotspots this quarter, 32% growth for mobile hotspots and 9% for IoT hotspots. That brings us to a total of 21,800 mobile hotspots and 27,600 for IoT.
Yeah, and while those numbers look good, the growth is actually kind of uneven. Early adopters of those IoT hotspots have actually seen their earnings go down as more hotspots have come online.
Oh, really? Why is that? I thought more hotspots meant more coverage, and that was a good thing.
It is. But there's a catch. Helium has this proof of coverage system. It's how they decide how to reward hotspots. And it basically rewards them for providing unique coverage. So if you have a bunch of hotspots, all clustered together, they all end up competing with each other, and the rewards get spread out.
Okay, so it's not just about how many hotspots there are, but also about where they are.
Exactly. Placement is super important.
Makes sense. Okay, so how does data actually get sent on this network?
Well, that's where data credits come in. You need them to send data. It's like paying a toll to use a highway, except the highway is a wireless network.
Ah, okay. And just a reminder, you buy these data credits, or DCs, by burning HNT, helium's token. So it's not just for speculation. There's a real use case here.
For sure.
Which actually brings us to HIP 138, a big governance proposal that just passed in Q4. This one is kind of a big deal because it could totally change the network. It would shift helium back to a single token model, meaning that HNT would be the only token used for rewards and network operations.
Yeah, it's a pretty big shift.
Okay, so in plain English, why should we care about this single token model?
Well, right now, hotspot hosts for both IoT and mobile can earn HNT rewards. But under HIP 138, it's likely that rewards would be focused on mobile hotspots.
Interesting. So some people are saying this is good for the network, and some are saying it's bad. It could incentivize more people to set up mobile hotspots,
Yeah.
which would lead to better coverage and more revenue.
Right.
But it also might make people less interested in running IoT hotspots,
True.
which could slow down the growth of that side of things.
It's a tough call.
Yeah, definitely something to watch.
Yep.
As HIP 138 gets implemented in early 2025.
Definitely.
And then on top of all that, there's also talk about Helium V3. It's a future version of the network. It's still kind of hush-hush. But it seems like they're trying to make helium even better.
Yeah.
More scalable, more secure, ready for tons of users.
Yeah. Helium is not standing still. They're always improving things.
So let's recap. Huge growth, especially in mobile data offloading. Helium Mobile is getting more popular, especially with everyday users. Some growing pains with those IoT hotspots, a big governance proposal that could change everything, and then whispers of a super ambitious future with Helium V3. It's a lot to take in. What are your main takeaways so far?
Well, for me, it's like carrier offloading. Think about it. Big telecom companies are turning to a decentralized network for help with coverage. That's a huge win for helium.
Yeah, it really is. It makes you wonder, if this is the start of a telecom revolution, could decentralized networks like Helium be the future of how we connect?
That's the big question.
It is, and one that I think we'll be asking for a long time.
For sure.
Okay, well, before we jump into all the numbers,
Right.
let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
All right, so let's talk about the money side of things because that's where things get really interesting. The market cap of HNT, Helium's token, went up a whopping 124% this quarter. It hit $1.3 billion. And the price of HNT itself more than doubled. It went from $3.44 to $7.54.
Well, okay, so does that mean people are getting really excited about helium, or is there something else going on?
I think it's a bit of both. There's definitely more confidence in helium's vision, but you also got to remember the crypto market as well. The crypto market, things can be pretty volatile.
Yeah, for sure. Things can change quickly. But let's stick to the basics for a second. How is HNT actually used in the helium ecosystem? We talked about burning it to buy data credits, but what else can you do with it?
Yeah, so there are three main uses for HNT. First, you can burn it to get those data credits, like we said. Those are what you need to send data on the network, kind of like buying gas for your car.
Right, okay. What about the other two?
The second one is staking. You can stake your HNT to get voting rights in the Helium DAO. This means you get to have a say in how the network runs. The more HNT you stake, the more voting power you have.
So it's not just about holding the token. You actually get to participate in the ecosystem.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
And the third use?
Well, this one is a bit more complicated. It has to do with HIP 138. Remember that proposal we talked about?
Yeah.
So right now, both IoT and mobile hotspot hosts can earn HNT rewards, but HIP 138 proposes a change, where HNT would be the only token used for rewards across the whole network.
Okay, so this single token model is a big deal.
Yeah, it's causing a lot of discussion.
Can you explain why? Like, what are the implications?
Sure. The idea is to simplify things. Focus rewards on things that make money for the network, which right now is mostly mobile data usage. This could actually increase the value of HNT because it would create more demand.
So more people using Helium Mobile, paying for data. That should drive up the demand for HNT.
Exactly.
But there's also the worry that this could hurt the IoT side of things.
Right.
If IoT hotspot hosts aren't earning as much HNT,
It might lose interest.
which could slow down the development of new IoT applications.
It's a balancing act.
Yeah, you want to reward the things that bring in money, but you also don't want to neglect the potential of IoT.
It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, for sure.
It shows you that even in the decentralized world, you still have these complex challenges.
Okay, let's talk about the hotspots themselves.
Mhm.
We mentioned that uneven growth, 32% for mobile hotspots, and only 9% for IoT hotspots. You said that early IoT hotspot owners were seeing their earnings go down. Can you explain why that's happening?
Sure. Remember that proof of coverage algorithm? It rewards hotspots for providing unique coverage. And if hotspots are too close together, they actually get penalized.
Oh, wow. So it's not just plug and play. You got to be strategic about where you put these things.
Definitely. And as more and more people bought IoT hotspots, the network got crowded in certain areas, and so the rewards per hotspot went down.
Classic supply and demand.
Yeah.
More hotspots, less rewards for each one.
That's it.
And this is why it's so important, to make sure there's enough demand to keep up with the growth of the network.
Right. You can have millions of hotspots, but if no one's using them, the economics just don't work.
Okay, so you mentioned that the hype around Helium IoT has died down a bit.
Yeah.
What about mobile? We saw much stronger growth there.
Yeah,
What's driving that?
I think a lot of it has to do with Helium Mobile's pricing. Those $20 unlimited plans, they're really shaking things up, especially compared to the big carriers who are constantly raising their prices.
Yeah, it's a crazy good deal. But can those plans actually be profitable? Where's the money coming from?
It's not just about the subscriptions. Remember, Helium Mobile uses those hotspots to provide coverage. And when someone uses Helium Mobile and connects to a hotspot, they're using data. And that data is being paid for with data credits.
Ah, so the more people use Helium Mobile, the more data credits get burned.
Exactly.
Which is good for the network.
And good for the HNT token.
So we should be looking at how much data is being sent through these hotspots.
Exactly. It's called paid traffic.
Paid traffic.
And the numbers for Q3 were really good. Average daily paid traffic went up by 32%. It reached almost 6,000 gigabytes. And the total paid traffic for the quarter was over 1.5 million gigabytes, much higher than the previous quarter.
Wow, that is a lot of data. Seems like Helium Mobile is starting to gain some real traction.
Yeah, it's exciting to see.
But it's not just about the company. There's this whole community aspect to Helium.
Oh, definitely.
It's like a decentralized ecosystem.
Right.
And they're really active. They play a big role in deciding the future of the network.
Yeah, through the helium improvement proposal process, we talked about HIPU 138, but there were a bunch of other proposals this quarter.
Oh, yeah. What were some of the main themes?
Well, a lot of them focused on improving the network itself, like fixing loopholes in the proof of coverage algorithm, or making coverage better in areas that need it, even making it easier for devices to connect to the network.
So they're constantly listening to feedback
Yeah.
and making adjustments.
It's a constantly evolving system.
Okay, so we've talked about the financials, the hotspots,
Mhm.
data credits, governance. We're getting a good picture of where helium is right now.
I think so.
But what about the future? What should we be watching out for?
Well, definitely the implementation of HIPU 138. It's set to happen in January 2025. And it could have a big impact on the network, on the tokenomics, on the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, we'll have to do a deep dive on that once it's actually rolled out.
For sure.
What else?
Helium Mobile is also making moves. They just announced plans to expand into Mexico, which could mean a lot more users.
Wider coverage, more users, more data flowing through the network.
Right.
What about partnerships? Are they working with anyone outside the crypto world?
Yeah, they actually just announced a partnership with USC Athletics.
Oh, wow.
They're going to be sponsoring football and basketball games.
That's pretty cool.
It'll give them a lot of exposure.
It's a good way to show people that helium isn't just some niche crypto thing.
Right.
It's a real company
Yeah,
building real solutions.
exactly.
And speaking of real solutions, let's talk about that carrier offloading program again. Remember, Helium is partnering with those big telecom companies to help them provide coverage
Right.
using all those helium hotspots. That 10,202% increase in data offloaded was crazy.
Yeah, it was huge.
Can you remind me how that works?
Sure, so imagine you're a T-Mobile customer and you're somewhere with good helium coverage. Your phone can actually switch over to using a helium hotspot instead of using a T-Mobile tower.
So it's like helium is a backup network
Yeah.
powered by the people,
Right.
and the carriers are paying helium for this.
They're buying data credits
Yeah.
to cover the cost of that data.
So it's good for everyone. The carriers get to expand their coverage without having to spend a ton of money on new infrastructure. And Helium gets paid for providing a valuable service.
It's a win-win.
And this program's still pretty new,
It is.
but it could be huge for Helium.
It could be.
How huge are we talking?
Well, think about it. There are millions and millions of mobile users
That's true.
all over the world. If Helium can become a major player in this offloading game, the amount of data going through their network could be massive.
Wow, yeah. That's a lot of potential. It's like they've found a whole new source of demand.
And that demand is only going to go up as we all use more and more mobile data.
It's a pretty exciting story.
It is.
It seems like Helium is really hitting its stride. But let's be realistic.
Right.
Every project faces challenges.
Of course.
What are some of the hurdles that Helium is up against?
That's a good question. Because even with all this growth and innovation, there are still some people who doubt Helium. They wonder if they can really compete with the big telecom companies.
Yeah, I could see that. It's like David versus Goliath.
Exactly.
And Goliath has a lot more resource.
And the telecom industry is tough, it's competitive, and it's slow to change.
Yeah.
Helium is going to have to overcome a lot of obstacles, regulatory hurdles, technical challenges.
And there's always the risk that some bigger company could come along
Yeah.
and try to copy what Helium's doing,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
but with more money and marketing power.
Helium needs to stay ahead of the game.
Okay, so competition, regulations, technical challenges, those are all real concerns.
They are.
But on the other hand, Helium has this amazing community,
Yeah,
a dedicated team,
for sure.
and a really disruptive technology.
Absolutely.
And we can't forget about the power of decentralization.
Right.
Helium's network is built by the people.
For the people.
It gives them a level of resilience
Yeah.
that traditional telecom companies just don't have. It's like a grassroots movement,
Yeah, it's
powered by people who believe in this technology.
It's pretty inspiring.
Okay, so we've talked about the potential. We've talked about the challenges.
Yeah.
What's the bottom line? What's the verdict on Helium?
Well, it's still early days,
Huh.
but one thing is clear. Helium is a force to be reckoned with. They're changing the game in telecom, and they're doing it in a way that empowers individuals and communities.
I love that. Empowerment through technology.
That's what it's all
A
about.
powerful story.
Yeah.
And one that we'll definitely keep following here on the deep dive.
For sure.
But before we wrap up, I have one more question for you.
Okay, sure.
We keep talking about helium disrupting the telecom industry. But what if the real disruption is even bigger than that?
Oh, wow.
What if helium isn't just building a better telecom network, but a better internet?
That's a great question.
We tend to think of the internet as this one big thing.
Right.
But what if helium is actually creating a whole new internet?
Like a parallel internet.
Yeah.
Built on different principles.
Exactly. One that's decentralized,
Yeah.
community-owned, more resilient to censorship.
It's like they're planting the seeds for a whole new digital ecosystem.
One that's more open, more transparent, more focused on individual empowerment.
Yeah.
And that's bigger than just cheaper data plans or better coverage.
It is.
It's about changing how we connect with each other.
And how we access information.
That's a pretty radical idea.
It is.
And one that Helium is actively working towards.
It's a reminder that technology can be a force for good, and that decentralization can create a better world.
Well said.
Oh.
Okay, but let's bring it back down to earth for a second. We've been talking about these big ideas.
Yeah.
But I want to highlight something specific that really shows the impact helium is already having.
Okay.
Remember Hurricane Helene back in September? It hit North Carolina pretty hard.
Yeah, it did.
A lot of people were left without power, without water, and without cell service.
It was a mess.
And this is where helium really shined. Those helium hotspots, they stayed active throughout the storm, providing 5G coverage to people who really needed it.
Wow.
And the helium team, they actually sent out emergency kits with Starlink devices
That's amazing.
to help people stay connected.
That's incredible.
It shows you that this technology
Yeah.
isn't just about disrupting telecom.
All right.
It's about building a more resilient world.
A more connected world.
Yeah, one that can handle anything.
It's a powerful message.
And it's one of the reasons why helium has such a dedicated community.
Yeah. People believe in this.
They see the potential.
And they're willing to put in the work.
Okay. Let's talk about HIP 138 one last time. That proposal to move to a single token model, it could really change things for helium.
It could.
And it makes you wonder, what role will HNT play in this future decentralized world?
That's the question.
We talked about burning HNT for data credits and staking for governance.
Mm.
But could there be even more to it?
That's what we'll have to wait and see.
As HIP 138 gets implemented
Yeah.
and we start to see the long-term effects. But for now, let's leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay.
Imagine a world where HNT isn't just some speculative asset,
Yeah.
but the currency that powers a global network.
Wow.
A network that's accessible, affordable, and resilient.
A world where HNT means freedom to connect, freedom to communicate, freedom to share.
Without being controlled by big corporations.
That's a powerful vision.
And one that's worth fighting for.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes helium so exciting. It's not just about building a better telecom network.
It's about building a better future.
Okay, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling pretty optimistic about the future of helium. What about you?
Me too. It's been great exploring this report, and I hope our listeners have learned something.
About helium, about their mission, and about the challenges and opportunities ahead.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. And remember, the best way to stay informed is to keep diving deep. We'll see you next time.